Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's webinar, where we're going to be joined by members of Goldman Sachs to talk through the Veterans Integration Programme. Just to introduce myself, my name is Lisa Jones. I'm one of the career consultants at the Officers Association. I was an Army officer in a previous life, and when I left the Army, I worked for two investment banks before joining the OA. During today's webinar, we're, as we've discussed, going to talk through the Goldman Sachs Veterans Integration Programme. We've got two of their alumni who are going to talk through their experiences and about the value of the VIP experience, as it's known. And they're also then going to cover details of next year's programme and how you can apply. So without further ado, I'm going to pass you to Will to introduce himself. Good evening, Will.
Good evening, Lisa. How are you?
Yes, very well, thank you. Good to have you on board tonight.
Yes, thank you very much for having us. I guess I'll just introduce myself. I commissioned from Sandhurst in 2013. Served in the British Army for sort of 4.5 years, left early 2018, and I joined Goldman Sachs this year on the Veterans Integration Programme. After a successful internship, I was offered a full-time role and joined the Operations Division, and now work as an associate within their EMEA regulatory reporting team. Jack?
Perfect, thanks, Will. So my name's Jack Torrance-Spence. I started at Sandhurst in January 2011. I also served in the Armoured Corps, did 5 years in the military, and then I joined GS on the 2016 Veterans Integration Programme. I work in private wealth management, which is part of the investment management division, and I'm currently a financial analyst, so coming up to my 3-year point at the firm now.
So I think, without further ado, we're just going to go straight into a poll. And what that means for you guys out there is that we'd like you to answer a question that's going to appear on the screen. Obviously, you can see it on the slide in front of you. And you'll have the ability to vote on which answer you think is the most pertinent. So we'll give you a few moments to vote on that, and then we'll discuss the results of that. Okay, so the results that we have there, 77% of you thinking that a permanent job offer would be the greatest benefit, 4% thinking it would be a useful addition to your CV, and 19% thinking it would add an extended network. So guys, what do you think about those results?
Thanks, Lisa. So I think that's that is exactly how I would have voted 3 years ago when I was, looking at leaving the Army and joining the firm. And obviously we appreciate that when you are coming out from the military, probably your number one priority is that stability of wanting to go through this internship process and end up with a permanent home somewhere. On that kind of point, we do, at Goldman Sachs, we aim to have headcount for any person who comes onto the internship that is headcount assigned to them, whether everyone converts into a permanent position, depends on performance, etc. But it's not a case whereby we have more kind of people coming along than we can hire at the end of the program. I guess the other thing that I would mention is surprisingly 4% thought it would be a useful addition on your CV, but I think that is definitely a kind of positive benefit of the internship. Goldman Sachs is a fantastic institution. You're working with some really quality people, and I think employers across industry do recognize that. And if you did the internship and you find out that maybe finance isn't the place for you, I think it's still a massive tick in the box having applied and been successful on getting on a very competitive program.
Yeah, I think one of the fantastic things about the internship is that it's not just an opportunity for a firm like Goldman Sachs to have a look at you, but it's an opportunity for you to have a look at, one of the big investment banks within financial services. So, if you are successful and you do get onto the scheme, it's a fantastic opportunity to understand whether or not you want to work in financial services and whether, Goldman Sachs is culturally a right fit for you. So I think, while I would definitely agree that a permanent job offer was my number one priority while doing this, all three, A, B, and C, are a massive advantage to the internship. And I think it's the not so secret of getting a job in the city is you have to have a good network. You know, you need to know those people who are looking at your CV when you're doing a CV sift, and you get a better chance if those people actually have met you before, have sat down and like you. So, you know, all three of those I think are massive, you know, bonuses for the VIP.
So I guess something that's probably worth highlighting in terms of the networking opportunities, like Will said, networking is hugely important. It's something that we take quite seriously at GS. If you say to your team, I need to leave the desk for half an hour to go and catch up with someone, regardless of where they work in the firm, there is kind of a benefit to us knowing a bit of a broader network, and so that is always encouraged. In terms of the program itself, we do kind of put a structure in place to help you with that. You'll be given a buddy, normally someone who's either been through the program or is from the military. Then on top of that, you'll have a secondary mentor, and then again, someone on your team you're working on who's assigned to be your day-to-day point of contact and deal with any queries. Obviously, there is an onus on you to go out there and be proactive and get going with your internal network, but we do try to also put a few pieces in place to kind of get you on your way in doing that.
And I think it's important as well to stress that, Goldman Sachs is a very diverse firm. There's a lot of diverse roles available. The majority of people from the military tend to want to go into one of the revenue generating divisions, but people need to understand that that's only 40% of Goldman Sachs headcount. 60% is in those enabling roles in the Federation, and there are some fantastic roles within the Fed where sort of the skills that people pick up in the military are definitely utilised, sort of project management and operations, compliance, audit, risk, realty. There's some fantastic roles out there. So I think it's really important for people to keep an open mind, to understand the structure of the bank, to get the most out of the scheme.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, guys. I think that they're all really valuable points there. And I think the fact that, there are, as you say, 60% of roles are those roles where military skills are valued is a really a positive message there for people to take away. We're now going to go on to the second poll question. Obviously, you know how to do it now. So what would be your main concern in undertaking an internship? So I'm going to launch that poll. Okay, so we've got our results here. 21% saying that the perception of a lack of seniority as an intern would be a concern. 48% feeling that insecurity is a concern. And then finally 31% feeling that compensation or pay would be a concern.
I guess I'll address, it's probably fairly similar to what I would have voted in the insecurity regarding the likelihood of a permanent role would have been my main concern, but I'll look to address each of these in turn. The perception of lack of seniority as an intern, I wouldn't really worry about that, to be honest. It's an 8-week internship, and if you get a full-time role, we sort of have four main ranks at Goldman Sachs: analyst, associate, vice president, and the managing director. And on my class, they hired people as analysts, associates, and VPs. So, as soon as you're getting a job offer, if you've got the requisite experience and you've impressed enough, then you'll move quickly off an intern, and the compensation and pay will match that. Not that interns are treated badly here at all. The majority of people Goldman Sachs hire were summer interns at one stage, and the sort of the internship process is something that's really valued at the firm. So I don't think sort of A or C are really things to worry about at all. I mean, the insecurity regarding the likelihood of a permanent role, hand over to Jack for that one.
Yeah, well, I guess this is similar to the previous poll question we had, and it comes back to this permanent job offer. I mean, again, we do only take the number of roles we have slots for. I think the feedback process that is employed along the way is quite useful in that regard. You're going to have a halfway review during your internship where you can get some feedback, see where you're tracking towards a permanent offer, and that is, it's fairly honest. No one's gonna lie to you at that stage. That gives you a good indication, and then towards the end, you can hopefully make any adjustments if required, and then hopefully carry on in that regard and get a permanent offer at the end of the internship. I guess the only other thing is, as we mentioned, I think there are a huge number of benefits to coming through the internship program. And like Will said earlier, it's very much a two-way street. It's do the firm think you're the right fit for them, and do you think Goldman Sachs is the right fit for you? And regardless, if those things don't align, you've still got a great line in your CV. You've still got a chance to network with people across divisions working in finance and come out at the end of it and probably do something that you're better suited to, you enjoy more, and you're kind of set up in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. You're on the internship, you're in the door, and you have the opportunity to go and network with anyone at the firm. And that is something that we really would encourage. And, our internship last year was only 2 weeks, but I must have sat down with, upwards of 50 people in those 2 weeks. And it's sort of, being a bit more entrepreneurial than you might have been in the armed forces and looking to make things happen for yourself.
Great, thanks very much, guys. So I think now really it would be great if we could hear perhaps a bit more of a personal perspective on your experiences and perhaps what attracted you to Goldman and what you're up to and how you feel your military experience has been a real benefit to you.
Cool, yeah. So I, left the army after a relatively short career. I was a squadron second in command at the time. Really enjoyed it actually, but sort of looked at the way the military was going and sort of wasn't overly enamoured with North Yorkshire in the winter certainly. And I thought, I looked at jobs in London. I think when you look at jobs in London, I wanted to do something that had that sort of fast-paced, relatively robust lifestyle that I'd enjoyed in the military, and I think financial services is a really good fit. I was lucky in that I had quite a good network already in the city, particularly at Goldman Sachs, so I spoke to some people I'd served with in the military who worked at the bank, and they all had really positive experiences of their time here. So after networking with them and asking them to put me in touch with people they knew, so not just people who were ex-services, but normal people as well, I sort of understood a lot more about the bank, the culture, and I thought it was all a really good fit. So I applied onto the internship. I looked at a role in the revenue division within GSAM, which is part of the investment management division. They didn't have a role for me, but offered me a role in operations. And so I did my 2-week internship in operations, which was extended, and I sort of worked across a couple regulations and sort of found a home in a team where, I was very keen on being client-facing, and I managed to find myself in a team which is client-facing, but still, is an operational role. Skills that are really useful from the military that I've been able to bring over are, my ability to manage relationships, problem solving. I haven't really used leadership yet, to be honest, but
one day
hopefully. And I think just your sort of general attitude towards life. You get on really well with people here. People like you. People want to support you, and for me so far, it's been a really, really positive experience. I'm only about 6 months in, but I'm enjoying it. My network's ever expanding, and it's a pretty fun place to come and work.
Perfect, thanks, Will. So similar to Will, after a not too long army career, I started in 2016 on what was then a 10-week internship program. And I guess when I was leaving the military, I knew I did an economics degree. I knew I was interested in financial services, and I was thinking, YGS. And I guess the foremost point that attracted me was that, I was thinking about finance. If I was going to go and work in finance, I wanted to work at what I deemed to be the best bank. And from the outside and from everything I read, that seemed to be Goldman Sachs. Kind of following on from there, I met some guys who worked here, and both ex-military guys and people who hadn't served were all extremely friendly, extremely willing to give their time to try and help me. And I found that wasn't always the case at other places where I sat down with people. And so that really kind of cemented in my mind that this was the place I wanted to be. So I started in Feb 2016 in PWM doing the wealth management professional role, which is a broadly admin-focused role, kind of supporting the sales guys who are the bankers who are bringing in new clients. Moved teams once in my internship, worked on 2 different teams, and then found a home on the employee trading desk, which is internal desk kind of serving everyone from the partners down to analysts. I worked there for about a year and then kind of transitioned into the role I'm doing now, which is the financial analyst role, moved teams to now cover new markets, which is South Africa and Israel, and at the same time got promoted from analyst when I joined to associate now. So, I mean, within 3 years, I've done quite a lot of different things, and I think that is, when I think of the kind of the highlights and why I've enjoyed working here, why I'm still here, I think that kind of the opportunities for advancement and the fact that you can make your own path. And if you think, I'd like to do something different, you can, sit down with people, understand where you'd want to be, and then kind of do whatever needs to be done to get yourself there is quite nice coming from the military where it's all a bit more linear and you can kind of see your path into the future. Certainly the people we work with here are extremely high caliber. You speak to the guy in tech who helps you fix your computer, and he's the best guy in tech that you've ever spoken to in that regard. So kind of firm-wide, everyone you deal with is of very high standard, and that's great. And I think also the kind of the meritocratic structure whereby I came in, was told I was a first-year analyst. A year and a half later, they were like, okay, normally this is 3 years, but you're obviously, a bit ahead of where your peers are. You can promote to associate and kind of go on from there. So that is definitely something I appreciate. I think, Lisa, we're ready for the next poll question.
Great. So the next and final poll is around what you feel would be the best preparation for an internship. So it's a question that I often get asked about, what kind of preparation should one do to get into a certain sector. So it'll be interesting to see how people feel about that and what indeed the guys feel about it. So I'll give you a few moments to answer that. Viewing the results there, we've got 40% saying researching the firm and division, 43% networking, and 17% industry training.
Yeah, I'm glad networking came out top, because I think that is absolutely the best preparation for any internship and for leaving the military in general. You need to talk to as many people as possible to understand what's out there. Financial services may be the thing that you've wanted to do since you were 6 years old, but it may not, and you may be a bit confused as to what you want to do. So make sure you talk to as many people in as many industries as possible to understand what's out there. But with actually obtaining a role at a place like Goldman Sachs, these internships really are sort of getting through the back door of the stable out back. They're an amazing opportunity for people like us to join, fantastic firms. And you put yourself in as, the best possible chance to do this by getting to know people. So when your CV does come across their desk in a CV sift, your name sort of, springs to mind, and they're like, I sat down with them for 10 minutes, had a coffee, thought they were a really impressive character. And, then you're through. Because if you're not, you're just not giving yourself as good a chance as you could. Research on the firm and division is, I would say, not necessarily important at the CV sift, but when it comes to interview is important. Goldman Sachs has a very unique culture, and it's something that we at the firm are very proud of. So if you sort of come into the interviews and you're not really read up on, what the firm is, sort of what the firm's culture is, you'll probably become unstuck. And industry training, I'll probably hand over to Jack on that one, because I know he definitely did some before he joined the firm.
Yes, I did. Yeah, guys, so I mean, to echo Will's point, I think obviously you hear it from everyone you meet in the city. Networking is important. Sometimes feels a little dry, but, each person you meet, you pick up something different. If there's even one interesting bit of information or something you can use, it's definitely worth doing. I think the research piece is probably the second derivative of that. The best way to understand the firm and understand where you might best fit into the firm is speaking to people who work here, speaking to people who work across the city and seeing, okay, I think I get on with these kind of guys, or girls. I think I could work with them going forward. In terms of industry training, it's quite role dependent, and it depends what you're looking to do. I did the IMC before I was still in the military, before I joined the firm, which I know a lot of people of my peers looked at and did. And more than anything, I think I found it useful because it helped me kind of understand the financial language. that people use on a day-to-day basis in the firm, and so that probably helped me in my interviews. Outside kind of industry training, if you are selected onto the program, then there's a great pre-package of training that you can do, which goes through all the financial markets kind of one by one. As I understand, it's not compulsory, but if you're going into a more technical role, then it's a great way to get up to speed. Something else I found really helpful with that is they have an Excel package as well, which I was hopeless at when I was in the military, and is used fairly regularly here, so that was great to be able to get up to speed a bit on that.
We have Goldman Sachs University here, which is a sort of an internal, as part of our sort of human capital management division, and that's an absolutely fantastic resource that you can use whenever you want. I started a course today on like basic accountancy, and there's loads and loads of courses you can do with and sort of to personally develop and to develop yourself and your career. So there are those resources here. The more you do early on, the better stead you'll be, but don't panic.
Yeah. So I guess to conclude on that, I think out of the three, the external training is probably the nice to have, and certainly the networking and understanding the firm are the need to have.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, guys. So I think now we're going to be moving on to kind of details and dates for the program. So to give people an idea of the time frame involved.
Sure. So hi, my name's Abby McMillan. I'm an associate in our Human Capital Management division. I'm responsible for co-running the Veterans Programme, so work closely with the individuals that you've just heard from, and can hopefully provide a little bit of colour on actually how you hope to get in the door. So as you'll see from the slide, our applications have now opened. We'll be closing the application window towards the end of the month, and then we'll spend the first week or so in November screening applications. You will then be invited to our first round interviews if successful. As you'll see from the slide, the first round interviews are actually via HireVue. Now, for those who that's not a kind of standard phrase, it's a fairly new for us as well. HireVue are actually online interviews, so you'll be invited to basically film yourself answering questions that kind of come up. So it does sound like quite a daunting process. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't worry too much. I'm just having nods from the team in the room that says, they did it. It was great. It's actually far more natural than it sounds. So the first round will be via HireVue, and then if successful after that, you'll be invited at the beginning of December to our final round interviews on site. Depending on the interest in your profile and the kind of the teams and the divisions that are interested in having you for the internship, depends on the number of people that you'll meet. So typically people will come in and meet between kind of 4 to 6 to 8 people. I know when you also hear about investment banking interviews, you hear of people coming in to meet 20, 30 people. I promise those are vicious rumours. We're not going to have you in for days on end. The process is also there to make sure that you're making the right decision in the next stage of your career. So we want to make sure that you get as much out of that interview process as we do. The program will then be giving out offers towards kind of mid-December, with the view that you'll have an offer from us hopefully before Christmas. The program will then kick off early February and will run for 8 weeks. I think that's about it. I think the other thing that I would say is those that have commitments kind of outside of London, and it's not possible for you to be there for the final round interviews. We have accommodated video conferences in the past, so for people that have been travelling, we can accommodate that as well.
Brilliant, thank you very much. You've been through quite a lot of information in the presentation, which I think has been great. But we have got quite a few questions, which I'll cover off on now, if that's okay. One question we've had is around last year's conversion rate. Are you able to share that kind of statistic with people?
I think sort of from a high level over the last couple of years, it's been about 75%. You won't necessarily be offered a place on the internship if there isn't a headcount. So I think, it's certainly something to worry about, but, you should, no, it's not something to worry about. Like, if you get a place on the internship, that should be the last sort of thought in your mind. Just go there, impress, and we all managed to get roles. So,
and I think one of the things to add to that as well is, something that we're very focused on this year is, the point in us doing the internship is to convert people into full-time roles at the end of it. And we will only be taking individuals on the internship that are able to convert into a full-time role at the end of it. In previous years, that's sometimes not been the case, and situations have changed, which obviously affects those numbers. But we are very, very committed to making sure that you're going to build a long and successful career here beyond those 8 weeks.
Great, thank you. A couple of a question around whether people, so some internship programs require people to still be serving, others you can already have left. What kind of profile are you looking for there? Is it all right if people might have just left the military in a few months?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is certainly not a one-size-fits-all type model in terms of the profile that we're looking for. And due to the nature of the military, people are going to obviously have left at different times. The stipulation that we do have is that individuals have left the military within 1 year and have not had full-time work experience during that time. If you've done other internships during that period, that's absolutely fine. But as long as you haven't started a full-time role within that year.
Great, that's very clear.
I think the other point that may be worth mentioning there, and Abby, correct me if I'm wrong on this, I think we're looking for people who are able to start at the end of the internship as well. So if you're, you can still be in the army when you're on the internship or, coming out on your final leave, but I think maybe there is some flexibility on this, but, in general, looking for people who can then convert straight into a full-time role, because that's the kind of process that we're trying to get is permanent employees on board.
Absolutely. Our dream scenario would be the end of the 8 weeks finishes and we convert you to a full-time employee on the beginning of week 9. I appreciate that some people, have to go back to clear their desks and things like that. Absolutely fine, but that's the dream scenario.
Brilliant. Thank you. Another person has asked about whether you only have one program per year. Is that correct, or is there any plan to have more than one? And if people obviously miss the timings for this one, are there kind of lateral opportunities across the firm that they can perhaps think about?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think the Veterans Integration Program itself is once a year, and I don't think there's any plans to change that in the future. And I think, there is I'm sure most people are looking at various options, and kind of street-wide, all the major US banks who do this kind of all line up around that kind of Q1 period, when normally there's a bit more flexibility on headcount within the firm, etc., and that's the best time to hire permanent employees. Outside of that, though, I know at least I can think 3 off the top of my head, maybe more guys since I've started who have come in as lateral hires. They've just seen a job role online and then applied for it and come in direct from the military into lateral hire roles. And I guess the second order effect point from that is that, again, is your network. If you've met some guys here and you can meet some more people and speak to them, get a better understanding of the role, then you've got a much better chance coming in as a military, candidate up against guys from the civilian world.
Great, thank you. There's been quite a few questions around age limit and the kind of rank limits, if you like. So obviously people have noted that you guys have got quite a similar background and a similar length of service, but are there people who are more senior, so perhaps in the major or lieutenant colonel rank range, who have been successful, and are there opportunities at that type of level? You mentioned at VP level. What kind of profile would you look to hire someone at VP level?
Yeah, I think in answer to that, absolutely. We've had a vast number of people come in at varying levels right across the firm. We personally saw that Jack and Will had some different experience based on the areas that they sit within the firm, and come in on different years, which is the reason why we thought they'd be good people for you to hear from this evening. But we've actually recently have had our first managing director promote for somebody that came in at the VP level. So that was an individual that joined us a couple of years ago. So in answer to your question, yes, we bring people on at the senior level as well. We absolutely don't have an age limit at all. and are very, very open and welcoming to individuals from a range of backgrounds. The firm spends a huge amount of time and effort on diversity generally across recruiting and across the firm, aside from the military specific recruiting that we do. So, in answer to your question, yes, absolutely, all walks of life, we're very keen to hear from you.
Yeah, I mean, on my internship in 2016, we had everything from a full colonel who served, I think, 20 plus years down to a guy who left as a lieutenant. So it was tri-service as well. So it was the full spectrum of people that you're seeing across the range. And Seb Heath, who was the full colonel, is still here as a senior VP, which is the role he was hired into. So it definitely is broader.
Brilliant. No, I think that's great news, and there were quite a lot of questions around that type of area. So hopefully you've covered off on people's expectations there. So someone else has asked about if they're interested in enrolling in an MBA. Is there any merit in them applying for the program, and would that be supported if they were looking to enroll in an MBA in 2019?
Sure, I'll take that from the assumption that means to kind of finish up, do an MBA, and then join us. In which case, yes, absolutely, you would still be eligible to join the Veterans Programme after you've done an MBA. However, what I would say is we do also do separate recruiting on the MBA side. We actually recently had an MBA joiner join PWM, who is ex-Navy, and yet did exactly that, decided to do an MBA from London Business School, and then join us via that route. If the question was actually around them doing an MBA at the same time as the Veterans Programme, it might be more tricky timing-wise, and to be honest, I'd probably recommend that we have a conversation about them joining us after they finish their MBA, because I appreciate it's probably going to be a bit of a busy time for them.
Yeah, but the firm is very supportive of people who want to sort of further their education while at the firm. A colleague of mine in operations is up for the Heropreneurs MBA award, and if he's granted that, Warwick Business School will give him a full bursary to study an MBA, and the firm is hugely supportive of that and will give him time off to do that. So the firm is very supportive of people furthering themselves.
Yeah, okay, great. So, for example, if somebody were thinking of applying for an MBA to start September 19, but did the internship program in the early part of 2019, I think they're worried that might count against them or something like that, because obviously they couldn't take up a permanent role with the MBA starting in the September.
Yeah, look, we'd look at this on a case-by-case basis, I think, but as Michelle, our end goal is to have people that can start straight away, because we're very committed to moving you into a full-time role. So yeah, it might be tricky timing wise, but then you'd be eligible for the 2020 program, I guess. So yeah, we do it on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, super. A couple of final questions then. One was a specific one around blockchain and roles in that area of the business.
Sure, do you want to?
Yeah, sure. So it's a question I hear from my clients fairly regularly, a lot last year, slightly less regularly this year, as the price isn't quite so upward sloping relentlessly. I know that our securities division are looking at opening a blockchain trading desk, market making within blockchain, I think starting in the US and potentially coming to London, but I don't think that is off the ground as of yet, but I know it's something that is being looked at. And I mean, I guess working, a role like that is a fairly niche role in the securities part of the firm, but I think the broader point is that Goldman Sachs, our ex-CEO Lloyd Blankfein said this is a tech firm with a finance kind of element tagged on, and so we definitely try and be at the forefront of what we're doing financially. And so as these new kind of technologies, ideas come through, we are definitely looking to be involved in that.
Yeah, in my other hat is actually I look after technology recruiting for our experienced hires as well. So yeah, it's certainly a topic that we talk about a lot. If I'm completely honest though, a role that is just specifically looking at blockchain isn't something that's really going to be available at the moment, just kind of managing expectations. Something that maybe, touches it, yes, quite possibly. We would, on the technology side, technology are very, very open to taking veterans onto the program. So, yeah, there would be the opportunity to kind of touch it and look at it, but realistically, we don't have a specific blockchain business unit that individuals can join.
Super, thanks. I think a final question around the business areas that are looking to hire on the internship. Obviously, that will depend on vacancies and so on. But what kind of choice do people or influence do people have in what area they apply to, or is it very much that during the interview it's assessed where their skill set lies and an area are proposed to them?
I think so. When I applied, certainly I put a preference. There are 17 divisions at Goldman Sachs, and they all, an HCM will have reached out to every single one of them to ask for headcount for this scheme. Not all of them will be in a position to offer that headcount, but some of them definitely will. I spoke to Geraldine earlier, and she'd mentioned that some divisions had already got back to you, but. Mm-hmm. I think for applicants, certainly put a preference, and I think HCM will be, quite transparent moving forward, sort of where there are roles, and they'll try and place you where, A, where you want to go, but B, where they think you're the best fit.
Yeah, I'd certainly, and one thing that'd be worth doing is probably kind of, I hear this a lot, but do take a look at our website, because it goes into a lot of detail about the different divisions that the firm has and actually what they do. And it's maybe worth having a look on our careers page as well at the type of roles that sit within those divisions, just to get a flavour of the type of work that you could be doing. It's really helpful for us to get an understanding of where your preference is, but do trust us that we have been doing this a little while, and we spend a lot of time working with the business and working with various teams to figure out what the best home would be for you. So do have a bit of trust in us as well, that we hope to put you in the area that's going to set you up for success.
Great, thank you very much. So I think we've pretty much covered off on most of the questions there, but if people did have any other questions, I don't know if there's any way that they can send those in or anything like that. Is there a veterans email address? Yes, absolutely. There's you should be able to link it via our website. So if you go onto the veterans page on our website, there is an email address there. But it's worth when you're applying to us as well, and we'd normally look for that interest in a cover letter that you supply us. So that's probably the best place to specify interest, because those cover letters are then read. And one thing that I would add as well is, it's not just I know some concerns that a lot of people have is, it's just a recruiting team that's going to be sifting through my CVs when I apply, and they probably don't have any colour or any understanding of my background and what I do and what that actually means in kind of military talk. What I would say is, both myself and the other recruiter that looks after this area, my husband's ex-Navy, I'm from an Army family, she is in a very similar position. We also sit down with the veterans network, all ex-military, to actually go through this. So there certainly isn't a couple of recruiters sat in a room with no context on what your careers actually mean. So it is helpful for us to have that colour on what it is that you want to do beyond that page as well. And is there someone that people should address the cover letter to specifically? No, I wouldn't worry too much. Okay. Great. Well, honestly, I think that's been really helpful. I think people all have got a lot of value out of that, and particularly hearing from from you guys in terms of your personal experience and personal journeys. I think that's been great. Really strong messages about the value of networking, not only to kind of eventually, help you get a job, but also to educate you and inform you and help you understand, what areas of business would be best suited to you. I also think really good, strong messages about military skills, how they're valued, and how there are, a good deal of roles within the organisation where those skills are really valuable and indeed in demand. I also think that the point about the two-way process, so not just Goldman Sachs looking at you, but you looking at them, and that again, the networking is a really important part of that. So I think, and above all, really strong message that it's a massive opportunity. So if you're lucky enough to get on this veterans program, make the best of this brilliant opportunity. And I think it's fantastic that Goldman Sachs is such a good supporter of veterans. And thank you all for your time this evening.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Lisa, and thank you very much, everyone, for joining. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Super. Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and look out for other webinars on our website. Thank you. Bye-bye.